We're going to continue our look at the lost world. How long did Adam really live? Parts of this are from an article by Dr. Georgia Purdom and Dr. David Menton in the year 2010. The name of the article was, Did People Like Adam and Noah Live for Over 900 Years of Age? Skeptics will tell you that there is a misunderstanding of the Hebrew numbers used in Genesis 5, which told the age of those who lived before the flood. They refuse to believe that Adam or anyone else could ever live over 900 years because we certainly don't do that now, despite all the scientific advances that we are so proud of. Now, the Bible teaches quite plainly that the early patriarchs often lived to be nearly 1,000 years old and even had children when they were several hundred years old. Similar claims of long lifespans are found in the secular literature of several ancient cultures, including but not limited to the Babylonians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Indians, and the Chinese. But even a lifespan of nearly 1,000 years is sadly abbreviated when we consider that God initially created us to live forever. According to the Bible, God created the first humans, Adam and Eve, without sin and with the ability to live forever. God gave the first human couple everything they needed for their eternal health and happiness in the Garden of Eden. But he warned them not to eat of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or they would die, and indeed all their descendants after them. We find this in Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. For 1,500 years after the creation, men lived such long lives that most were either contemporaries of the first man, Adam, or personally knew someone who was. The 10 patriarchs, excluding Enoch, who preceded the great flood, lived an average of 912 years. Lamech died the youngest at the age of 777. Methuselah lived to be the oldest at 969. In this chart, you can see the ages of these, how there's a little fluctuation, give and take both ways, and the Bible scripture that supports this age. Now, Adam was the original Neanderthal, as well as all who lived prior to the flood. But during the 1,000 years following the flood, the Bible records a progressive decline in the lifespan of the patriarchs, from Noah, who lived to be 950 years old, and to Abraham at 175. These would be those whose remains we identify today as Cro-Magnon, or Cro-Magnon if you don't do French. During the 1,000 years following the flood, however, the Bible records a progressive decline in the lifespan of the patriarchs, from Noah, who lived to be 950, until Abraham at 175. In fact, Moses was unusually old for his time. He was 120. Because when he reflected on the brevity of life, he said, "The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if, by reason of strength, they be 80 years, yet is their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away." Psalm chapter 90, verse 10. And here's the list of the next 10 generations, according to the Bible. And you can see how the age basically declines until the Cro-Magnon are gone. Extra biblical evidence to support the long lifespans of the people in Genesis is found in the Sumerian king list. This list mentions the flood and gives the length of the reigns of kings before and after the flood. There are many striking parallels between the Sumerian king list and Genesis, such as the flood event, numerical parallels between the pre-flood biblical patriarchs and the antediluvial kings, and a substantial decrease in lifespan of people following the flood. One author on this subject concludes, "It is highly unlikely that the biblical account was derived from the Sumerian, in view of the differences of the two accounts and the obvious superiority of the Genesis record, both in numerical precision, realism, complexion, and moral and spiritual values. It is more likely that the Sumerian king list was composed of using Genesis for numerical information. Obviously, the book of Genesis would only be used if the person writing the list believed it to be a true historical account containing accurate information."